Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Well, howdy, folks. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Keenan Diaz.
And we're the hosts of The Exorcist Minute, a show where we examine, extrapolate, and excavate the scariest movie of all time.
Each episode covers a single minute of William Friedkin's 1973 horror masterpiece, The Exorcist.
If you like deep dives, this show is the deepest.
Did you know the film's iconic theme song, Tubular Bells, wasn't written specifically for the movie?
Or that the 1973 audience members were throwing up and fainting in the theater before they ever got a glimpse of the demon?
Or what about all the crazy on-set mishaps, cast injuries, the director firing real guns?
Ooh. Ever wonder where Ouija boards came from or how they got their name? How about some history on the Catholic Church or the Roman rite of exorcism? Or maybe we can tempt you with some juicy demonology lore. Did you know that Pazuzu had an ex-wife? Find The Exorcist Minute on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to your shows or at theexorcistminute.com. Until next time, folks,
the power of The Exorcist compels you.
Hooked on you, baby, you're golden. Time moves, I never noticed. Just can't get enough. Got me wonderstruck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Make Me a Nerd. I'm Mandy Kaplan, and it is my mission to explore the world of nerdery and all things geek. And I cannot do it alone. I'm so lucky to have a bunch of really wonderful friends and colleagues and bullies getting me into all of this stuff. I am shocked and awed at the vast amount of things I am going to attempt throughout this process. And this one was a big culture shock. And here to tell me all about it is my incredible guest, who is a writer, a performer. I believe one of those people I deeply resent because she's excellent at everything she tries. She is the actual geek girl authority, and I'm very, very excited to hear about that. It is Audrey Kearns. Hi, Audrey.
Hey, Mandy. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
I'm very excited. So can you, most importantly, not your life, not your wild, intelligent observations about everything, tell everyone how you know me.
Yes, so I met you through a guy named Brian, who I'm married to, way back in the aughts, I believe. I think you were performing with him at the time.
I was.
And yeah, so you and I have never gotten a chance to perform together.
Oh my God, the lies you tell. The lies.
The lies I tell.
This we have to start over with you raving about our performing together.
Gosh.
Yeah, we wrote sketches together and performed them at Acme.
Oh, yeah, but I was thinking
you
of
and
your
me.
play.
No,
I was thinking of the play.
Oh, yeah. No, you weren't in my play, but you and I
That's what I was talking about. Brian was in a play with you.
Gotcha.
Okay. No, we did Acme.
We did Acme together.
Yes,
I
loved it.
Racking my brains. I'm like, we've got to have an old character, but I don't remember anything that we did. So,
I probably still have all the sketches from those classes we took and everything. I don't know, somewhere. I have so many boxes in my garage. I'm sure they're there. And I really enjoyed Acme because I was, I think I hide it well, but I'm incredibly shy and socially anxious.
Oh,
and
really?
One way, yeah, absolutely. But I've got a pretty decent sense of humor. And one way for me to break out of that is to just get up on stage and make fun of myself, basically. Mm-hmm. And it kind of, I'm very good at doing that. And so taking all those, learning how to write sketch comedy and then perform sketch comedy was really, really, even at the age, I mean, I was in my 30s, I think, already back then when I was taking those classes, and it was still like major breakthroughs for me in my shyness bubble and everything.
I find that so interesting. A lot of people say it, so it's not, you're not blowing my mind with like, I've never heard that before. But is that one of the reasons, that aspect of your personality, is that something that you think loans itself to fantasy and sci-fi and other worlds and things you can do on your own?
Yes, I think so. I think when I was a kid, because I'm very quiet until I get to know you. Mm-hmm. And when I was a kid, my mom she always tell me, where's your head? Is your head in space? And she would call me her little daydreamer because I was constantly, I grew up overseas. I'm a military brat, like a foreign service brat. My mom was in the State Department. My dad was in defense intelligence and the Army. And so it was like me and my sister, And we were usually in places where nobody spoke English. You know, we were assigned, like, we lived in Hong Kong, we lived in Budapest, I lived in the Ivory Coast. And
who didn't?
I know everybody lives in Abidjan
I thought you
nowadays.
looked familiar.
So I would just retreat into my brain and make up stories. And I was usually, you know, the hero who always had a good quip, you know, or was really strong, you know, stuff that I was not able to do in school around the other kids. I did inside my head, usually on a spaceship or holding a magic wand in a far off fairy tale.
Sense. I mean, it's all escapism, right? Even the, you know, forgive me, the Real Housewives, everything that people go to for entertainment is escapism. You don't want your own reality. You want something else.
Yes. And you know, it's nice to be able to check out for a second, you know, and I really enjoy it, you know, and I decided to make a career out of it somehow.
Which I admire. From my head to my toes, I admire that you took something you love and made a career out of it. But what do you love? Before we get to your geek girl authority, what kind of stuff in this nerd culture are you obsessed with? And if I said you can only take a few things to that desert island, what would you take?
Okay, yeah. Well, you know, I'm very into science fiction and fantasy. I mean, you know, nerd culture is very ubiquitous nowadays. You know, you've got video games and comics, but to me, it was science fiction and fantasy, books and movies when I was younger, and now you can get it all the time on television. So I guess I'd need to bring my Apple TV or something to the desert island so I can watch a good space show. You know, I have always said if something has a space and laser fight, I will watch it at least once. And so, you know, if something has a wizard, I will read a few pages to see if I like it. And so, it's science fiction and fantasy for sure. I think they're very rich worlds. And what I appreciate about them is the world building, you know, which we'll get to later on, talking about part of the thing I brought.
The secret's out because it's on the title of the episode. So for the first few episodes, I was like, shh, but now everyone knows it's Farscape.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But I love world building. And I also love one more thing I'll say about science fiction and fantasy. When you get really good pieces of science fiction and fantasy, you're getting incredibly well-rounded characters who have incredible story arcs. And it's usually, you know, they go through their own hero's journey, not necessarily the Joseph, you know, sticking true to a Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, but you just have a really great story arc from beginning to end. Like when I had you watch the TV show that we're going to talk about, it's just like, I wanted so badly to give you the last episode, but it would just be so freaking confusing.
Of course.
You know,
of course.
Because you're talking about, it's, you know, 88 episodes plus a series, and it would have just been too much.
Audrey, have you ever considered a career in politics? Because you exactly did not answer my question at all.
I didn't.
You were like, I love everything and I don't want to pick one. Very politics.
Okay. Oh, so you're saying like one thing, like am I going to bring Star Trek or Star Wars?
Yeah. And I'm not saying just one, but you go to a desert island and you can only bring your top 3 things from that world, be they books or movies or whatever.
Okay. I would bring. Oh, there's so many.
Smoke coming out of her ears, everybody.
Yeah. This is like the worst Sophie's Choice anyone's ever given me.
Flop sweat. This is getting crazy.
I'll just, you know, if you ask me this tomorrow at the same time, I would say different things, you know. But today I will say Battlestar Galactica.
Great.
Lord of the Rings. Star Trek.
I've never heard of any of those things.
I know, right? I mean, it's like, do I pick obscure ones or do I pick?
No, that's great.
And Farscape, you know, I love Farscape. So
great.
Yeah. And Dune, and then there's the Wheel of Time, and then there's
Audrey. I said 3.
Going. Sorry, Doctor Who.
Well, we keep saying the word Farscape, which I had never heard of. So if you had to pitch it in an elevator, if you met a wildly attractive person like me who didn't know what it was, you would say, "Oh, it's blank." How would you explain the whole series?
I would explain it by saying it's a fish out of water series. It's a man who gets thrown into a new universe. It follows a scientist and astronaut who gets thrown to the other side of the galaxy, into the middle of a war, and where he's the only human, and he has to figure out how to find his way home, find his way back to Earth, and deal with all these new species that he's meeting. Some who want to kill him, some who want to sleep with him, some who think he's no smarter than a bug. And it's about his encounter, bringing his humanity to this sector of the galaxy and trying to be the best that he can be, trying to maintain a sense of humor so that he can deal with the fact that he may never find his way home, and trying to get there, trying to get home.
Tonally, going in, by the image that on the page of IMDb or Just Watch, it looks comical, and there are actually Henson Company Muppets involved. And I thought, oh, terrific! It's like a comedic show, but it really isn't. It's not a comedic show. They have definite moments of comedy that we'll get to, but overall, it takes itself quite seriously. The stakes couldn't be higher, and it's life and death, right? Every episode is life and death for all of these people, but they really sneak in some light, funnier moments and characters, which is always appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And using Jim Henson Workshop, his son, Brian Henson, was really involved with this project, of course, and creating, two of the main characters of the entire series are puppets. And it's because, as any human would, you watch the show and for a while you just can't stop thinking, I'm watching a puppet, I'm watching I'm watching a Muppet, And the most fun thing about Farscape is finding out an episode from somebody is like, when did it click where you stopped thinking that Rigel and Pilot were puppets and they were just part of the cast? And that happens,
right?
Where they are just a great part of the cast with their own sorrows, their own triumphs, their own arc. And it's amazing. I love it. And yes, there is a great comic element to it. And to your point, but it's not a comedy.
Yeah.
I know that I remember reading one time that it was created kind of as an anti-Star Trek. And I'm not saying anti-Star Trek where they didn't like Star Trek. Of course they did.
Like an alternative,
but they wanted to make, an alternative to it. There's not that rigid militaristic component that Star Trek has on their ships and everything. This is a little more Wild West. It's a lot of, great thing about the main character, Crichton, is, he's constantly throughout the entire series bringing up pop culture references just to keep himself sane, because nobody knows what he's talking about if he calls them Captain Kirk or something, or Toto or something like that. But it's keeping him sane, and it's fun. It's funny.
Yeah. So in this pilot episode, just so everyone can play along with us, astronaut John Crichton, as we mentioned, accidentally flies into a wormhole during a research mission and finds himself in the middle of a space battle between the peacekeepers and a group of escaped prisoners. These prisoners pull him aboard Moya, their sentient ship, also known as a Leviathan, and John faces aliens for the first time. To escape the pursuing peacekeepers, Moya engages in a starburst, transporting them to uncharted territories. Officer Aaron's son unexpectedly joins their journey, and they must contend with, Bialar Crace, who seeks revenge for the accidental death of his brother. So there's a lot in that one pilot episode. But like you said, it's a fish out of water. He's in space, he's being held captive, and he makes friends, and he's like, where am I? What is all this, and how do I get home? If if I can dumb it down for myself.
Yeah, no, you didn't dumb it down. That was a very, very good description of it, for sure. And I love, that pilot episode. I love the writing. And I'm a big fan of the creator of this series. His name's Rockne S. O'Bannon, I think is his IMDb name. But he created like another show I almost gave you, was one called Defiance, which is just as wackadoo, but it takes place on Earth.
Okay.
But he is so good at, and he's writing, I think, on Evil right now. He's so good at world building. Like, this is such a fully realized world by the time, like in the first 5 minutes of the show, you're able to find out he has a fractured relationship with his dad. You're able to find out that he's an astronaut, but he's also a scientist. And so we know he's really smart, and we know he's physically fit. And then I think in the first 10 minutes, he's slingshot into the wormhole and is in the middle of a space fight, space dog fight, and everything. So it happens right away. And I just think it was a really, really clever way to introduce the show.
Absolutely. And starting it in the real world is helpful for me, because I can, if the first shot is a bunch of creatures I've never seen before, that's immediately scary to me and confusing. But starting it with real people on Earth having real conversations, great. I got it. Now let's get into space and see what happens. So I thought it was strategic of them to allow us to settle in just for a minute with John Crichton on Earth. But before anything really happens, there is a theme song to this show.
So glad you asked about that. Yeah.
That I would like for everyone to hear just a snippet of. Pete, if you could do it on YouTube at 45 seconds in, please play it for about 15 seconds. Okay, Audrey, those women sound like they're screaming in pain. Do you have...
It is amazing.
It was jarring to me. Like, that made
you
it...
didn't like it?
It felt like a comedy, to hear a bunch of women going, I was like, okay, we're off to Jim Henson Funny Town, and it's not.
So you thought that's when the comedy was going to come in?
Well, I thought
it in for you, actually.
Right. But what is your take on why the theme song has those women screaming or moaning or whatever they're doing?
I always thought of it as vocalizations, tribal, but also medieval kind of sound.
Visceral. It's a very visceral sound.
Yeah. And so I should have looked this up, because I do love this theme song. I think it helps. Like, so you're going from the safety of Earth, right? Mm-hmm. And then he's thrown into the other side of the galaxy or universe or whatever. And all of a sudden, there's all these aliens around him. And then it cuts to that theme song. And I think it's supposed to be jarring. Can you imagine all of a sudden you are somewhere, you don't know where you are. There are people, because in the beginning, nobody's, speaking English that you can understand.
Yeah, and everything's unfamiliar.
And everything's unfamiliar. Yeah. And there's weapons, and there's a blue lady, and there's a guy with weird things on his face, and there's this, thing, the Muppet riding around on his whatever you call it. I don't know what they could call his thing. It's like a little hoverboard or something. And then you have that music, and it's just letting you know that you are not home anymore.
Okay.
And I think as for me, as the series went on, it was just a reminder that you're watching a fantastical thing. It was a reminder to get me into the headspace of the show.
Right. And it's not melodic. It's not familiar and, and catchy and toe tappy. It's something foreign to us.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And then I've seen other shows do that kind of thing, whether they knew that Farscape had kind of done it first. I don't know. Like, there's another great show that someone will eventually make you watch called The Expanse, if they haven't already. And it is fantastic. That's hard science fiction. It's hard science fiction about Earth, so it's all humans. But they use a woman with vocalizations as well, except for some reason in my head, I'm thinking it's Nordic, but it's still this really kind of interesting vocalization that just gets you ready for an otherworldly show.
I really appreciated the world that he ended up in. And maybe the theme song helped me to leap into it. I don't really know. But once he was there, there's no pulling punches. I mean, everything is unlike anything we've ever seen before. Although I say that, and then I want to contradict myself if I can. There are these things I'm seeing in a bunch of work. I'm seeing a lot of scaly creatures. I'm seeing a lot of bulging foreheads and reptilian-like creatures. Are they all borrowing from each other, do you think? Or do you think there's a scientific theory about outer space life and why creatures look like this in outer space?
That's a really good question. That's a very good question.
Yes.
I've often thought that. Yeah. Well, no, I've often thought that too. You watch, movies, whether it's Independence Day, whether it's Predator or what have you. And sometimes, yeah, it's like, okay, there's the arachnid alien. There's like you said, the reptilian. There's, I've noticed that too. And I've always wondered if, I'm not an artist. I'm not good. I can't draw a straight line, so I really appreciate, really great makeup and all that kind of stuff. And I assume that when they're going to college or they're learning their trade, you study animals, you study them, and maybe here's the thing. When I was in my 20s, I used to manage a costume house in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, okay.
And we'd get, and it's the largest costume house in the Southeast. We rented to a lot of musical theaters, and then we had our own Halloween business. Back then, Disney, their animation studio, I think it was there. Mm-hmm. And they would come in every once in a while to rent some stuff, and they needed a model. You get like $700, and this is like 1996 money, $700. So it was a lot of money. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, it still is a lot of money. But basically, they offered to their animators to blow off steam. You can, leave your desk and go, build clay creatures or whatever, and then go back to work. And so this week they were offering a model to stand there and to sculpt her out of clay. And so they asked me to do it. They said, you'd have to be topless. Oh. And so I talked to my husband, and I was like, oh, this just sounds terrible. I mean, I have a cute face. I don't have a cute body.
Well,
and so I didn't.
Stop it.
I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. But I was like, I want that $700. And,
sure.
and I did a couple gigs like this. My body is in some Ripley's Believe It or Not in South Carolina as a mermaid, a topless mermaid.
Fantastic.
I did that too. But that is another story.
Then I buried the lead in your intro. That's your greatest accomplishment.
I know, right? I hope it's still there. So I had to stand, just like with like bikini bottom on, and I have to stand there for hours. And then there's a circle of tables around me, and they would build a clay likeness of me. And what I found interesting is not one of them looked like me. So many were using me as the body, and so many were reptiles, like a huge like reptilian face, and using so it was a fascinating thing to watch, especially because it was so cold and my nipples were super hard.
And hard not to take it personal when you're like, is that what I look like?
I know.
Really? A giant lizard?
Exactly.
With boobs?
Exactly. I mean, and some of them were just like, dear God, but my God, you are so, so talented. But to your point, that was a very long story to get to your point about the reptilian things. I do remember a lot of scales and everything that these artists were using.
Yeah. I just, something about some of these, the big guy with the beard who yells a lot, but he's got a heart of gold. I don't remember his name.
Dargo.
He is very Vulcan to me. I mean, from what I've seen of Vulcans, there's a similar aesthetic. And I'm just wondering if it's like...
I think you mean Klingon.
Klingon, thank
right?
you. Yes, I do.
Yes.
I totally do.
Vulcan. I knew exactly, because I thought that too. He is definitely the Klingon of the show.
Yeah.
For sure.
I have 100%. A brand I have to protect, Audrey, so I have to pretend I don't know the difference. But
what if I didn't correct you? Then I would fail.
Right? Geek girl, what?
What?
Well, there's, I mean, yeah, we don't have to go scene by scene or break it down, but now that you're rewatching it, what were your thoughts or ideas, or what sparks for you in Farscape, in this pilot?
I remember how happy I was when I saw the pilot, because I didn't see the pilot first. This was back in the 90s, and this was an Australian TV show. It was filmed in New Zealand, this Australian TV show, and it came to the United States later, and I knew they played out on Friday nights, but during the afternoons, they would do 3 hours every week. They'd do like 3 or 4 hours of Farscape. And so I'd be like in between shifts of whatever job I was working at that time. And I just turned it on, and I forget when I turned it on, what episode it was on, but visually it was just, like I told you, if there's a space fight, I'm there. It must have been a space fight, but visually it was just like, oh my gosh. And so I just kept, and you couldn't find it anywhere.
Of course,
this is, you couldn't find it at Blockbuster back then or anything. And so I just kept watching and watching and watching, hoping to get to that first episode again. And finally it aired, and it was just amazing. I'd already figured out, because they do this great thing in the beginning after the pilot episode when that music is playing, where he does a bit of narration, where he's explaining where he's at. Yeah. And so that kind of helped me. When I saw the pilot, I was very excited, because that's after my parents retired. I was about 11 or so. That's where I moved to. It's the shuttle, where the shuttle is at the Cocoa Beach area. I moved to this little place called Rockledge, Florida. So I saw every shuttle from 1980 till I moved to Los Angeles in 2002. Yeah. And so it's called the Space Coast. And I was just, so it starts with him looking at the shuttle. And that was very exciting for me. And, I wish.
They can't call it NASA, which I thought was interesting.
No, they call it IASA.
IASA,
I think because they take so many liberties, because it's kind of like an alternate Earth. Yeah.
Right.
But I really was a bit jealous of everybody who got to watch it and not know how he was going to end up in another part of the universe, because I already knew, like, I didn't get to go on that ride. Thankfully, by the time the end of the series came, I was at least watching it in real time with everybody. So I at least got to see the end of the series in the episode order it was supposed to be in. Yeah.
I had a realization myself for one of the reasons I think I've been resistant to sci-fi and fantasy is I'm such a safety nerd in my life. I don't do risky things. I don't like speed. I don't like skiing. I don't like anything where I feel a sense of I'm losing control and going too fast and falling. And that's what this is, right? He goes up and then immediately his ship is out of control, and everybody's always running and falling and getting shot at and speeding in this genre. So I was watching it and I realized, I was like, no, don't they have seatbelts? What are they doing? And it's like, that's I think one of the things I've been resisting. But that's just a personal observation about how lame I am. But we all have our things. I totally get it, because I have a resistance to those things as well. But in other areas, it's just like when I'm got a lot of fear issues about, like you're saying, right here, is the car going too fast, or is everybody doing exactly what is expected of them, which they never are, which screws me up all the time, And one of the ways I've dealt with that is through being a performer and writing, because that's where I can be a little reckless, because I can't in my own life. And maybe that's why I like the science fiction or fantasy, because I get to watch other people do it. Yeah. And there's also a sense where people getting killed in shows, and people, it's like watching realistic shows is always very hard, and I'm able to digest it better if it happens in space, or if it happens in a fairy tale. Like I think I said this on the podcast, so I apologize to anybody, but Tony Soprano, I couldn't watch it because that could really happen. Outer space doesn't scare me as the realistic possibility, that someone will creep under a table and shoot a spike into me, and I'll become a clone of myself. I'm not so scared of that. Bring it on. But that was episode 2. Highlights for me, although lowlights, were the alien loogies when they hucked loogies. I'm not a fan of loogies. Yes, it gets a demerit from me. But forgive me. What is the woman's name? The blue lady.
Zahn.
Okay. She is talking about the fourth sensation, and she's flirting, and there's something she can do when she pushes a cheek on another person's cheek, and I was very intrigued by that. It's a very playful moment for her, and I really like her as an actress.
She is great, and when we get to another point or whatever, I have a story about her. I met her.
Go for it.
She's really neat. Oh, okay. Well, so I've ended up meeting, I think, 3 people from the show and actually working with one of them. And
so cool.
I know. Yeah. So like when I moved to Los Angeles, I was not managing a costume house anymore. I was managing a coffee house.
Yes.
Yes. And there was the first ever Farscape convention that was in Santa Monica.
Okay.
And I couldn't go because I didn't have that kind of money. I think I was making $7 an hour at the coffee house. I mean, or $8.
And the show had its own conventions?
Yeah, this was its first American convention.
Okay.
It was the first American convention. Say, I don't know where they had it. It was probably in some hotel lobby. It wasn't like, they just had fans from the United States come. And I remember watching a panel with some of the actors, and they were like, oh, that's the week we realized that the United States liked us because a lot of people showed up.
Yeah.
Well, the coffee house was right down the street from which was so terrible for me because I couldn't go because I couldn't afford it.
So close yet so far
and
away.
It was like a rare rainy Southern California day, and this woman walks in, and I knew who she was, even though she wasn't blue. I just knew because that woman her name is Virginia Hay, and she has that energy.
Yes.
And I just was like, "Are you Zahn from Farscape?" And she was like, "Yes." And so we talked. There's no one in the cafe at the time because it was raining, and I called her a cab, and she told me she left the show, and I knew she had left the show in the third season, but after the third season, but she left the show because she was getting sick from the makeup.
Oh no!
Yeah, like really, really, horribly ill. It was not good. It was ruining her skin, and she had to leave. She had to leave the show. Yeah, so I got that tidbit, and then I gave her some coffee and made her lunch, and yeah, it was my job, but I enjoyed doing it for her. And when she left, she just put on it was like a bar. There's a coffee bar. She put on the bar this like pencil drawn sketch of her character's face, and that a fan had given her these sketches, and it said, "To Audrey with the most gentle spirit," or something like that. It was just such a sweet thing, and she autographed it, and it was I thought, I'm so mad. I tried to find that right before the podcast, but I do have her action figure that I'm showing you right now.
I love it.
Yeah, but I wish I had that drawing. I wanted to show it to you because it's about this big,
So special.
It was. And then years later, and then the same week, there's another guy who wasn't in the episodes you saw that he plays a character named Braca. He came in the coffee shop when it was slammed, and he's played a supporting role. And I was giving him his coffee. I was like, "Are you Braca?" And he just stared at me. He's just like, Flash forward to 2020, I'm working Comic-Con, and it's all virtual panels because of the pandemic.
Right.
And there's a Farscape panel, so I decided to cover that one. And they weren't doing any Q&As with journalists or anything, which, was fine. But the moderator asked, "When did you know that you were a worldwide hit?" And he said, "When I was in Los Angeles, I went into this restaurant, and the waitress looked at me and said, 'Are you Braca?'"
That's so
like, that's me.
cool.
That's me.
Audrey, that's such a great story. And
and I had to cover it. I had to cover it, and I wrote up an article for it, and I just put, by the way, that person was me, but there was no way to tell him,
right?
Hey, that was me, dude.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh,
and then there's another main character.
Such a beautiful full circle moment.
I know. Oh God, that was 18, 19 years after that event, and he still remembered it.
Now
I still remembered it.
You sent me pictures of some of these characters because you said I might refer to them, and I didn't see them. And I'm looking at Braca, and he definitely looks like the lawyer on the other side of the table who doesn't play fair. Let's just say that. That's like what he looks like.
He did it. He was definitely a sketchy character. The other one, the guy named Scorpius, I just wanted you to see that guy's makeup. He ends up being like one of the big bads, right?
Well, yeah.
And Braca, he's a scary guy. Braca is his subordinate that's kind of his, ass licker, doing whatever he says, but he will be evil and shady and everything. So those two were often working together. Yeah. And then Chiana was like, she's one of the main stars. One of the pictures I sent you, she's not introduced yet for a while. And I actually did a storytelling show with her, and she's an incredibly talented woman.
Oh, very
she
cool.
She did me and Brian's storytelling show at Dragon Con. Yeah.
Was that 5 Truths and a Lie or?
5 Truths and a Lie.
That's so cool.
I saw her at Comic-Con. I just walked up to her. I was just like, would you do I saw that you're going to Dragon Con. You want to do a storytelling show? She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, shit. And she did, and she delivered. Her story is great. Yeah.
I love that. I love hearing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, back to episode 1, just to go over some highlights for me, because for me, it's all about humor. And when Crichton realizes these characters fart, they fart helium, so all of their voices go high. That's just hilarious.
Yeah, when Rigel farted.
Yeah.
When I saw that, when Rigel farted, I was like, oh, I wonder, like when you said you were bringing the demerits, I was like, is she going to give the fart a demerit? I wasn't sure.
Oh, fart?
I didn't know.
Oh, I'm a big fan of farting.
Yeah.
Yes, in all of its forms.
Yeah.
And then also at the very end, Crichton grabs a gun and he's like, stop or I'll pump you full of little yellow bolts of light. Because he's like, what is this weapon I'm holding and what am I doing here? And so they really infused it in a Han Solo way to me. Han Solo has a quip here and there and he's commenting on some of the crazy creatures he's seeing. So, but this one, it was justified beautifully because this is all foreign to him. So, of course, he's going to have some wise ass remarks or, that one was a little more neurotic. I liked the humorous moment.
He is definitely the vehicle for a lot of the humor. And it comes from exactly that perspective, that human perspective. I don't know what this is. And it's usually like he and Rigel, the Hynerian, the Muppet.
Yeah.
A lot of the humor comes from those guys.
Yes. And Ben Browder is the actor's name. And when it started, I thought he looked like Silk Stockings actor guy from the 90s, that like late night racy
I remember.
TV.
Yeah, I didn't really watch it. Yeah.
He's very handsome. And in the beginning, a little wooden. And I thought, uh-oh. But he was quite good and nuanced. And then I read about him. And he's this classically trained actor who credits Dame Judi Dench with being one of his teachers and influencers. He's really quite accomplished, which was very cool. So
it is cool. And I will say this, and you'll I don't know how many folks are giving you shows to watch, but the more you watch these science fiction or fantasy shows, you'll see that a lot of these actors are classically trained, and it's like, especially the folks like the guy who plays Scorpius, where you were like, oh, they get into this. That guy is like phenomenal, when they have to, I think they're having fun, especially when you get to play a bad guy, and that makeup probably helps them a bit. But these actors are really, really good.
There was an episode of Frasier with Derek Jacobi, and he played one of Frasier and Niles's, favorite English actors, but he had gotten caught on a long-running sci-fi show, and he couldn't come back from it. And because then no one wanted to see him do Lear. He was just so, but it makes good sense because they can lose themselves in a character and be very convincing, whether human or alien or a combination. So, and I have learned through my journey on this podcast so far, if I pull out and I stay wide, I enjoy things. When I obsess over, wait a minute, I missed it. Who was that guy? And what's his rank? And why is he talking to that? Then I get too in the weeds and I lose focus. So this was really the first time, Audrey, that I was like, I'm going to go on the ride. I'm not going to worry if I catch every little detail. And if I miss the name of a planet, I miss the name of a planet. I'm just going to enjoy the ride.
I totally relate to that.
Yeah. So
I'm constantly pausing and yeah.
But this was a good one
back
for that.
when they were doing 22 episode seasons. So they're just dropping little hints. So if they may drop a little hint, they know you're not going to get it, but you're not going to get the rest of that answer till episode 7. Nowadays, I don't know if they do that because most seasons can be like only 10 episodes long. But yeah, it's hard when there's so much going on. When you're thrown in that world, it's hard to say, oh my God, this is going too fast. This is going too fast. So kudos to you for being able to just enjoy the ride there.
Oh, Audrey, you didn't have to say that. Yes, you did. That's what I'm going for here, is to enjoy these rides and just stop worrying about every little fart and fiddle, as my family says. Can we move on to episode 2? Era's son is feeling sick, and they realize everyone's getting cloned. They're getting sick and infested and cloned on the ship.
Oh, I got it. I found it.
Okay, thank you.
It's called Exodus from Genesis. A locator beacon automatically broadcasting its exact location to any peacekeeper forces in the area is discovered, inextricably fused into Moya's neural nexus. That is the log line for the episode, but that's not really what happened.
No. It's about clones and who's real and who.
Okay, it's about clones.
Right.
Yeah,
Which
there's
is
some
fun.
aliens that live in space that come in to lay eggs, and like you said, they make clones of the crew.
But to start the episode, fun fact: they don't brush their teeth. They use a bug to clean their teeth. Took me a minute to get over it.
Yes.
And then the creatures that these giant roaches that's what's infiltrating the ship. They look like roaches. I think they called them beetles in the episode, but I'm anti-bug.
But they're gross.
Yeah.
They're super gross.
Yeah. So that was a little tough, but I powered through. And I was wondering, only 2 episodes in, is there a Sam and Diane thing happening with Crichton and... Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
And Aaron, yeah.
Yeah, they're good-looking people.
Definitely. And it gets so freaking wackadoo throughout these 88 episodes. At one point... that's why if you had seen the very last episode, I won't say what happens in case some wonderful reason you were to pursue Farscape. They definitely, it's a really great love story. At one person though, Crichton is quote unquote twinned, where another one of him is created, and they're both complete and original. Like there's not one that's a clone of the other. They're actually just 2 Crichtons. And the crew happens to be split apart on 2 different ships for most of the season. So she falls in love with the Crichton she's with, and not the other Crichton, which is hard for the other Crichton.
Right.
But then the Crichton she's with dies. And then she's reunited with the other Crichton, and it's a whole mind fuck that oh God, I fell in love with you, but you died. This is weird. Yeah. It's bananas. But yeah, their story is, you definitely are getting the vibe that they're going to hook up.
It's like a showmance. They're the only 2 people. She's not human, but she seems human. And so they're the only 2.
Yeah, she's Sebastian, but they look exactly human. Yeah.
Right. So, of course, they're going to end up getting it on at some point. They have to. The way they revealed the story of this episode, where everyone got infected, and then they were he was talking to whom he thought were his friends, and they started beating the shit out of him. And I thought, oh no, they're, and then everybody started getting cloned. They were twisting it very well, I thought. I didn't see it coming, and then boom, there it was. And then another surprise. It was well done in terms of an episode, because
I'm glad to hear that you like that. Yeah,
you have to. There's this overarching story: is he going to get home, and how? Right. But then each week he has to have these obstacles pop up that are satisfying and have a beginning, middle, and end. And as writers, I imagine that's difficult to keep your eye on the prize of, is Crichton going to get home and what's going to happen long term, but also keep the stakes high for these individual stories.
Yeah. And every character has such an incredible journey on the show, as Crichton tries to get home,
Are there anything jump out at you from the second episode that you wanted to discuss?
I kind of internally was panicking because I like the episode, but I didn't know if it was the strongest episode for you to be watching if I'm trying to make you a nerd. So I'm glad to hear that you were surprised in some ways.
Yeah.
So I even immediately started looking up other episodes, but then they were to me like, this is a lot.
Yeah.
If I give her season 3, episode 20, that's a lot of lore
Right.
that she doesn't know about. And,
I just love the
so I'm
idea
glad
that
to
I
hear
could
you
make you nervous. That thrills me. Just
I was.
Just-
And then today I'm like, I need to send her those pictures. So she
yes.
okay, I want her to see how creative the makeup artists are. And blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Well, to that end, that there's that first one, Naranti. No, how do you say her name? Yeah, Naranti.
Oh, Naranti. Yeah.
If y'all at home want to Google a picture of Naranti, she looks like me after a day at Six Flags. That is, she not a young lady,
It's
not caffeinated. She just looks
no.
over
And
it.
I don't know if you can see it because this picture, she's got like a third eyeball up there too. Yeah,
Well-
she's an interesting character. She's like another one that I wouldn't be surprised if I looked up that actor and she's been in like, does 5 Shakespeare festivals a year. You know, she was just such a good actor. Yeah.
I didn't get the last line, or one of the last lines. It said, I just wrote, I don't get, actually, it's just me and you. But now I don't quite remember the context. Do you remember that line?
No, I
At the
don't.
end of the second okay.
Darn it.
I will just forever live in the dark about it. Now, my last question is, is this show similar to Guardians of the Galaxy in any way? Because I've never seen that, but that's what I was thinking. Tony,
Are you serious? You really thought that?
Yeah.
Because
are they not?
No, I mean they're not related in any way whatsoever.
Oh no, I know they're not related. I know they're not related.
But no, I think that's a really great observation because after Guardians of the Galaxy came out, James Gunn, the writer, the director and co-writer of it, was being interviewed, and they asked him this question, and they said, "Did Farscape influence how you made this movie?" And he's like, 100% yes. He goes, yes, yeah. I don't remember his answer, but it was an emphatic yes.
I'm such a nerd.
Influenced
I did it.
Fact, in the second, did you see the second Guardians of the Galaxy?
I've never seen Guardians. I don't know anything about it.
Those are really fun movies. They're really fun movies. So in the second movie, there's these people. They're all gold. I forget what they were, and there is a really quick cameo from Ben Browder.
Oh,
Because James Gunn liked Farscape so much, he gave Ben Browder a really quick cameo that if you blink and you miss it, like if you really knew Ben Browder, you'd know that was him because it's just the makeup and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So good observation, lady.
Hey, thanks. Oh God, I feel so proud. Would you be willing to make me a little certificate or award in some way?
Yes.
Out of tinfoil? I don't want you to put yourself out. Well,
I'll do something.
Thank you so much. I want you to get a chance to tell us more about your career in Geek Girl Authority and what you're working on.
Okay.
But I need to do my business first, if you will allow me.
Oh, wait, before you go, can I show you one thing?
Yes.
I have a stuffed Rachel.
But that's like crochet. That's handmade.
I'm showing her a stuff. I think this, Brian got this for me for Christmas one year, and I think it was from Etsy where somebody made it like his feet and his skin. I don't know if you could tell. It's like corduroy.
Yes. Oh, God. And very
someone
Christmassy in a red velvet cape like Miracle on 34th
Oh, wait,
Street.
no. It's got a tag. It's not Etsy. It was actually made by Toy Vault. Yeah.
You're
by
like,
April 16th.
made by
It was made for the
child
20th
labor in
anniversary.
Taiwan. That's not cool.
I don't like this anymore. And then my last
love
one is
it.
I do have an Aaron Singh action figure. And next time I have a black cat or a black dog, I'm going to name her Aaron Singh.
Oh, I love
she's
it.
one of my favorite all-time. She's up on my shelf behind us with Ripley from Alien.
Audrey,
she stands next to Ripley because
I love your enjoyment of it. It's so cool. And that you have the paraphernalia and the mementos and, I mean, a hand-drawn sketch with an autograph from Virginia. Hey, you win.
Yeah.
You're really impressive in this world.
I love my stuff for sure. Well, like the stuff I like.
Okay, so I do want to ask you how you turned that passion into a career after I get my business out of the way, which is Make Me a Nerd is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Pete Wright, and my theme song is Wonderstruck by Jane and the Boy. Please, please, if you're listening on Apple Podcast, those reviews help me grow this show. So if you could hit 5 stars and write a review right under it where it says write a review, I'd be really grateful. And you can reach out, you can comment, you can make suggestions. That would be wonderful. You can also get me on social media at Mandy @_Kaplan_Clavens, and that's both with K's. And I have a membership club at makemeanerd.com. Click the join button. $5 a month gets you extra content and more access to me and all the fun things we're doing with the show and stuff I haven't even figured out yet. So please, please consider $5 a month. It's a bargain if you do a year. I think it's only $55 if my math works out right. So thank you. Join me next week for my very special episode with the aforementioned Pete Wright. We're doing The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, which Audrey just reacted to, so I know it's good. So give that a watch before you listen to that and join us for that episode. Okay, Audrey Kearns, Geek Girl Authority. How does one turn just a passion and a love and a knowledge into a career the way you have?
Around, I started Geek Girl. We just had our 10-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
And, a little over 10 years ago. Thank you very much. I was working at a gaming company and I was doing marketing, as their social media manager. And I was learning a lot of skills, like, online skills and stuff like that. There's a graphic designer I was good friends with. And my husband had just gotten a good job. We go back and forth on who has the better job financially.
Yes.
And whoever has a better job financially, the other person can do a little more creatively, And so he just got a really good job. And he's like, okay, Audrey, it's your turn. So I took a little time off. And I had two lady friends who were huge nerds as well. And I was like, let's start a website. And we're all actors at that time. And we're like, let's make videos, funny videos. And geekgirlauthority.com. And so the whole site was just going to be fun, us doing funny videos.
Great.
YouTube stuff. And then that graphic designer friend of mine, his wife was also a designer. They created the website for me. So it was like, and you've done this before too, where you just find a group of people and you create something together.
Yes.
And I was very lucky at everybody wanted this everybody was starting out, so needed stuff for their portfolio. So it didn't cost a lot of money. And so we did make some videos. We did something, I don't even know if it exists anymore. Probably it's called Better with Robots, where all we did was dress up like robots and do things like fill up our car with gas. Go to the gas station. And it's just like 15 seconds of a robot filling up their car with gas, and it's Better with Robots. It's like cocktail
sure
hour,
is. Yeah.
Better with Robots.
Yep.
Yoga. And we would just do it all dressed up as robots. But as time went on, and this is nothing about them, they just wanted to commit to other things. And I wasn't confident enough to keep doing videos by myself. And I've just found myself with a website. And that was a nice design and a domain name. And I was doing a podcast, I think at that time, called Kneel Before Odd, which, Mandy, you may not know this. There's a very famous line in a Superman movie. There's a villain named Zod. Okay. And when he gets to Earth and talks to the human, I forget if he says this to the president or whatever, he says, kneel before Zod.
Got it.
And so my podcast was Kneel Before Odd. Okay. So I was doing the podcast and everything, and I was like, well, maybe I should just blog. And so me and the other two women, we were blogging, but I was definitely doing most of it. And then all of a sudden people started reaching out to me online saying, can I blog for you too?
Right.
And nobody was getting paid, and we just kept doing it. And I recently have looked back on some of those first posts that I put up, and they are horrendous.
Oh.
They are so terribly written. Oh, I mean, they're obviously the people writing them are excited, including me.
Right.
Like, my stuff is shit.
It wasn't Better with Robots.
Time went on, It was definitely better with robots. But no, as time went on, my writing got better, and I just started. I realized what was sending people to the site, and what was sending people to the site were not videos like Better with Robots, not my podcast. It was, trailer coverage or news coverage,
right,
or
inside info,
list articles, inside info, or I have a lot of writers that will do say the top 5 episodes of Farscape. Why do we love Aaron soon? Stuff like think pieces like that. And all of a sudden I was getting all this traffic. And so I was like, I'm going to focus on what's doing well right now. And I did. And now I have about 20 people working for me. We're in the middle of a site redesign because my site's a little dated. It's not enough to buy a new house with that I'm making, but I'm able to compensate my writers a little bit. It's more of a stipend, but they're no one's working for free,
right?
And so
you press credentialed into
press credentials,
cons and interviews and events. I mean,
exactly. So studios and networks reach out to us for coverage.
Audrey,
instead of begging them.
Yes.
Please. Yeah. So now an editor-in-chief and publisher of a entertainment website.
Yeah.
And I have a really great team working with me. Yeah.
I think
in fact,
remarkable.
Thank you. And the people that are working with me, they're absolutely amazing. And like my managing editor, Melody, she's been with us since 2017. So, and I feel good about that I'm able to create something where people want to stick around.
Right.
That create that kind of team,
So that's where everybody can find you, geekgirlauthority.com. Right? Are there any other things you want to plug? Do you have podcasts that you're doing right now?
No, just Geek Girl Authority. We'd love to have, no, not podcasting right now, but just GGA. Would love a follow on all the socials.
Yep.
We're on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, or X, whatever you're supposed to call it now, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok.
Oh, stuff I've never heard of. Okay.
We're on all of them.
Well, everybody go to Geek Girl Authority, please. And Audrey Kearns, thank you so very much for doing this. So great to reconnect with you. Of course.
Thanks for having me, Mandy. I really had a good time.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, I'd love to. Oh, I've got so much stuff.
Yeah. Well, I see there are toys back there that I don't recognize. So we'll.
Oh, God. We can do a whole. Oh, my God. It's right here. This is it.
Oh, it's right framed on your wall. Oh, that's amazing.
It was framed right behind me. It says, "To dearest Audrey, thank you for your gentle spirit, Virginia Hay." Can you see that?
Yes. It's stunning.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, oh my God, I can't believe it was right. I'm like, I don't know where it is. It's
that's amazing.
Okay. Anyway,
all right. Well,
I can do a whole episode where I just take you through my book.
Yes, maybe we will. Bonus content. Okay. Thank you. And I will be in touch with you. I can't say see you next week. That doesn't make any sense. But listen for me next week. Bye.
Excellent. Bye. Thank you, Mandy.